What's good, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the You're Wrong Sir podcast. I'm extremely excited for those who are listening through audio. I truly, truly appreciate you. Take the moment right now to subscribe if you haven't. Also, leave a 5-star review. But I'm excited about this one, okay? This is one I've been planning for like a week now, a week or two? And there was just some information that came out in the sports world, and I was like, I have the perfect individuals who I think should be on. And so I'm excited too, because this is the first episode that I've done with two people at one time. And so I feel like these individuals are going to be like a great balance. So yeah, I'm not going to talk too much, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So my first person that I have is Daniel Salib. This is my guy. Okay. Dan, the money man, is on the podcast. Daniel, I'm going to just let you introduce yourself. So go ahead and tell them who you are.
Yeah. All right. So first of all, pleasure to be on the podcast. I'm excited. You're wrong, sir. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff.
Tell
Big
them, bro.
fan of Anaya Jones. But a little bit about me. My name is Daniel Salib. I'm 20 years old, born and raised in Houston, Texas. Attend Texas A&M University. I met Anaya through GSA, Grady Media. I work with Joshua and the team on the contract and football side of things, and I've been involved, immersed in the game of football pretty much my whole life that I could remember. So, but yeah, that's me.
Yes, that's Daniel. Daniel, thank you for hopping on. And then we got a two-time guest, Rodney Chance. If you guys have not tuned into the previous episode with Rodney, definitely go do that after you finish this one. But Rodney, I'll let you introduce yourself too.
Yeah, Daniel is being very humble. Daniel is, like Anaya said, money man, brains. This guy is amazing. But it's a pleasure to be on with two superstars, young, gifted superstars. Daniel just said his age. I'm not gonna say mine because I'm the old head. But 30, living life. Pleasure to be on. I was on, what was that, a few months ago. Mm-hmm. I'm the head of scouting for GSA, Grady Sports Agency. Working with Daniel, working with the team, pretty much day to day, looking at what's the next prospect that we're going to go after, working together as a team to make sure that they get everything that they need and provide value. And pretty much that's my day to day for the team.
Yes. So everybody listening, like, this is family. Okay. We have been working together for a while. I've been working with Rodney the longest because we all have taken Joshua's Agent Academy. And so we work on the GSA and Grady Media team, but there were like no better people to talk about this topic with. And so we're going to be talking about football, the things that are happening, but most importantly, an emphasis on what's happening within the HBCU realm. And I felt these individuals were perfect. But before we hop into it, I am curious because I feel like I haven't asked you this, Daniel. You talked about having a love for football, how this has been ingrained in who you are. And we know that because you eat, sleep this stuff, bro. You always tweeting it, texting it, everything. Tell me, what was your introduction to football? Because you didn't play, right?
No. So yeah, I mean, if you consider 7th grade B team backup quarterback, I'm your guy. But after that, broke my wrist, and then my parents were concerned about concussion, so I never played. But my dad introduced me to the game of football. So he moved to America in 1983. Quickly became a Cowboys fan.
Wait, stop. Where are your parents from? We got
okay. So my dad, he's from Egypt. My mom's
okay.
from Iraq. I'm of Middle Eastern descent. So he came to America when he was 16. He quickly got involved in football. He was a fan of the Tom Landry Dallas Cowboys. But once the Cowboys fired Tom Landry, my dad was like, I'm out. And thank God for that today, because I could not be a Cowboys fan. They're insufferable. So if there's any Cowboys fans listening, I don't like you. I apologize. But so my dad got me into the game of football. I was probably 10 years old. I think first game I went to, NRG Stadium, which was Reliant back at the time, Houston Texans. It was January 2010.
Arian Remember Foster, the date, bro?
Yes. I was like January 2nd, 2010. And it's significant because it's the day that Arian Foster locked up the season rushing title, 1,610 yards on the season. And it's funny because back then, my dad had told me, he said, we're going to see the game. Arian Foster might break the rushing record. And I didn't even know Arian Foster was a Houston Texan. And so I was like, I thought we played the Jaguars that day. I thought he was a Jaguar. And I was like, nah, he's not going to break it. Like, we're going to stop him. So that was like a decade ago. That was my introduction to football. And I've just grown in the game ever since.
As y'all can see, this man knows the exact amount of yards, the day, every number. Okay, so when we say money man, like this is where it's coming from. This man knows every stat. Rodney, though, for those who have listened to the podcast, I'm sure you guys have heard Rodney's story. And Rodney was also a D1 athlete and played football too. But talk to me about like the introduction. Like I feel like I've never really asked that. What was your introduction to football also?
Yeah, I love to actually talk about my intro into sports in general. Um, my dad and my two uncles introduced me to sports when I was 3 years old. Um, One of my uncles, he passed away a few years back, but long story short, he was a paraplegic. He pretty much, the NFL helmets and any helmet actually has like a warning sign on the back of their helmet. It's because of him. When he was 18 years old, he was being heavily recruited for linebacker, Division I schools. And long story short, he was in a pile, got caught at the wrong time, and broke his neck.
Whoa.
So my uncle, his name is Tony Williams. He really taught me a lot about life, and that's something that I'll dive into another time. But pretty much, he introduced me to basketball and football, along with my uncle Brian and my dad. And from there, it was just like a no-brainer. My mom was talking about the other day that I was 4 years old, turning on Sports Center, watching it, like waking up, watching it. And I remember having like a little, y'all know, like the little hoops that you have in your room. And
Yeah.
I would be acting like I was Penny Hardaway. There's everything like Penny Hardaway, MJ. I would just pretty much try to mimic what they was doing. And that's how I was introduced to it. Basketball was really my first love. I really thought that I was going to be Division I basketball player and go on to play professional, but the Lord had different plans, and I'm grateful because it taught me a lot of life lessons about myself, and I was fortunate to play Division I football and to get an education.
I didn't know that story, bro.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's good. That's good because I feel like a lot of the times we know how good somebody is at something in the moment that you meet them, but a lot of the times we don't know, like, okay, what's the real story behind why these people are interested in what they are and who they have become. So that's a little information about these guests. But like I said, I texted them a week ago and I was like, y'all, we got to record an episode. Like, it don't even be a no-brainer for me. There's no. It's like, look, we got to record a podcast episode next week. And it was either going to be when we were just together in South Carolina. I was like, hey, let's catch each other on Zoom. And so the information that really just caught me was like, whoa, Hue Jackson was recently hired as the head coach for Grambling State. And so we've seen that all over social media. Really, really big deal. And for those who are listening, Hue Jackson is kind of like a legend within football. He's very well known, but most importantly, a previous coach of the Cleveland Browns, also the Raiders. And so it's really significant because not a lot of African-American coaches have the opportunity to be a head coach. And have the opportunity to get the ability to be credible and prove themselves. He has his also opinions about, African Americans within sports and coaching jobs, but it's a huge big deal. It's a big deal because we have people like Deion Sanders who have set up that trend to make people feel comfortable. It takes one person and then others will lead. But I'm just really curious. We're going to dive into it, talk about the topics and pick your brain. What are you guys' opinions about Hue Jackson's hire, and what was your initial reaction when hearing the news?
Yeah, I mean, I can take off the bat. Obviously, when a school, it's one thing for an NFL coach to take another NFL job, like that's like a lateral move. But to go from the NFL to college football is sort of like, okay, like, like what's going on. So for Hue Jackson to go to college back to an HBCU, that's huge. That's like a cultural shifting type move. And we've seen that, yes, with Deion Sanders and Eddie George, legendary Titans running back. He went to Tennessee State. He just agreed to become the head coach of Tennessee State a couple of months ago. So to see that shift, it's like, I'm starting to notice a trend, like it's becoming more prevalent. Deion Sanders has shown that you can be successful. And I think it brings a ton of notoriety. I think it brings a ton of credibility. And Grambling State has had a couple of good seasons. So the expectation is Hue Jackson's going to get them over that hump, bring them to more of a national prominence with where they're at. And so I thought it was great news. I thought it was really interesting to see that more, not only former legendary players, but NFL coaches are taking this more seriously and really considering this as something that they can be doing in the future.
Rodney, what about you?
Yeah, I would say it's something that definitely was all over the news, especially within the Black communities.
Yes.
People love to see that. Really, for him, it's a guy that he's gotten multiple chances to become a coach elsewhere, but it's really a redemption story for him. I think with the Cleveland Browns, he was kind of written off as a guy who was very knowledgeable, knew what he was talking about, but wasn't really a good coach. And obviously he exited the Cleveland Browns and they've had tons of turnover since.
Do you agree?
With him being fired?
Yes. Do you feel like the hype was true about whether his coaching was credible or not?
I believe he is a credible coach. It's just obviously I believe in opportunity. And I don't believe at that time he had the necessary tools to be successful. As we see, he kind of paved the way for that group to learn how to lose, and now they're seeing how to win, especially a guy like Baker Mayfield. But what I would say with him is that pretty much he provides hope to a lot of guys that go to schools that are HBCUs. He's a guy that shows that he's been successful, and with a head coach like that has already been down the path of success, whether it's at the college level, the NFL level, it shows that if a student athlete goes there, they could potentially follow in his footsteps. So I think that was huge in terms of hope. And obviously, like you see an NFL coach is coming to coach a college team, and then let alone a HBCU, like that's major.
I agree. I like wholeheartedly agree with you. And I think I'm gonna touch on 2 points. Like you talked about hope. Even Deion Jackson, like when he got the job, his whole thing was, I believe at Jackson State, I believe. Like we see that everywhere. And so getting people like to buy into those missions is amazing. And it's also one of those things for me, like being African-American, right? And Rodney can relate to this better, but it's different when you have people who are in a leadership position that you can relate to. Like, let's be real. It's different having a Black head coach and a white head coach. It's cultural things. It's things you can relate to on a different level. There might be struggles that you might have at home that this person can relate to and another coach can, like those little things. And I think we have to be really cognizant of how those affect the culture. Like we watching Deion Sanders documentary on Barstool, they be lit in the locker room, but like you couldn't do that any other time. And it's just about like that relationship. And I think the more comfortable you feel, the better you thrive. Like a lot of the times you talk about opportunity, not having the correct tools, not having the correct people around you, not having the correct people to believe in you. So I think that's why we've just seen like this success. But my initial reaction to it, I was really like, I was shocked, but super excited. And so I say that because like the previous episode I've had on the podcast talking about the $40 million slaves book. And so reading that book, one of my biggest takeaways, I was just like shocked, like in awe. Like in 1968, Grambling State had the most professional athletes outside of Notre Dame in football. And it's like, what? How does Grambling State go from having the most people, like being the Black Notre Dame, to people not even wanting to go there nor looking their way? Like in all reality, sometimes even with scouting, and like honest question, how often do you guys look at HBCU schools? Never.
Not. You go ahead, Danny.
No, I was gonna say us specifically, not very often. And it's because there just hasn't been a spotlight on it. But I will say there is becoming more of a prevalence on media coverage. So the Draft Network, Jordan Reed, who formerly of the Draft Network, now with ESPN, beginning of the season came out with a top 40 list of HBCU prospects. There's a couple guys who've been invited to the Senior Bowl. So it's becoming more prevalent. But in the past, entirety of the NFL, or like the past couple of decades, has not been an emphasis on it at all. But there will be. And last year, 2021, David Moore from Grambling State had the opportunity, should have been drafted, was a round 3, round 4 guy, went undrafted for whatever
Rodney,
reason.
you agree?
And he was at the Senior Bowl too.
Yeah, okay.
He was at the Senior Bowl. And so it's like, how did this guy that's a 3rd, 4th round guy go undrafted? And not a single HBCU player was taken in the draft last year. So we're going to see, there should be a couple guys this year. So we'll see, but hopefully that's a trend that's going upwards.
Yeah, like I would say, I wouldn't say that we do not recruit them. obviously the spotlight is on, you would say, the movement, Black Lives Matter and things of that nature. There's more eyes on minorities as a whole, trying to uplift them, trying to get them to places that down a path of success. I would say for us, it's not, the first place we look is not at HBCU. But talent is talent, whether it's Division 3, 2, 1, whatever it may be, you look for talent. So yeah, there has been some people that we've looked at, not necessarily the first place we go to, but as a whole, like as an agency, you're looking to identify somebody that represents and aligns with our vision. Like we say all the time, a GSA guy. So you look at people at HBCUs that you can relate to. So yeah, we look at that type of talent. It's just a matter of, it's not the first place that we go to.
That's good. And that leads me to another good question. So Daniel, both of you guys agree, you brought it up. This individual, what was his name? Who was drafted? David Moore. Okay. David Moore invited to the Senior Bowl. You feel like he was eligible enough to at least make the league, not even be a free agent. What do you say to those people like Rodney, who just said talent always shows up, right? When you watch the film, people always say like, hey, if you are good, no matter where you go, you'll be seen. However, his story is not a depiction of that famous adage. What do you say to that? Like, what's the reason that you feel as if even though the talent was there, he wasn't drafted?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's multiple reasons, but I think there's a specific reason. I think if you look at the makeup of NFL scouting departments, personnel departments, front offices, you're not going to see a lot of Black people. And so there's not going to be that. And yes, the old adage is the NFL will find you. Last year, a guy was taken in the 3rd round, Division 3 FCS school, Wisconsin Whitewater or Wisconsin Whitehair, something like that. And so the NFL is looking, but who is looking? That is important, because if the composition of that player personnel department, that front office isn't majority, or not even majority, if there isn't a good enough representation of people of color, Black people, then they're probably more willing to disregard HBCUs or just say, players haven't come from HBCUs in the past couple of decades. Like, maybe there's like nothing there to look at. And so they'll go look elsewhere. So I think the reason is it's just the make, and it's the same reason why there's not enough Black coaches in the NFL. Why is it that 70% of NFL players are Black and you can count the number of Black head coaches on your hand? It's not even 5. It's like you alluded to, it's easier to become it when you can see it. But if nobody's there doing it, then there's not that representation for you to say, hey, this guy is talented. We should be looking here. So I think that's what ended up happening to David Moore, and just in the past couple of decades in general.
What's your thoughts, Rodney?
Yeah, let me take it back to what you first mentioned about that book, when it was saying that there was a good amount of talent coming out of Grambling State in comparison to Notre Dame. So if you take it back in the day, in terms of the Walter Paytons, Deacon Jones, Mel Blount, most recent, like you can even say Michael Strahan. I know y'all know Steve McNair, and I know Uncle Shay Shay. So Shannon Sharp, like there has always been talent. And the thing that I love most about individuals that come from HBCUs or individuals in general that come from smaller programs is that you have a chip on your shoulder. Like it's as if people say you're not good enough.
You can relate to that too, though.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I feel as though for me, I've always been the smaller dude, or I don't know, that just talent may not have always been as good as everybody else, but I feel as though when you use that as an advantage, like they're counting me out, I'm gonna show them why I'm great. I'm gonna show them why I can do this. It's better, and that's why it's so important that we're getting back to that, like recruiting the top players in the country. The number 1 player in the country is going to Deion school. The reason why is because Deion's there. So taking it back to the hiring, it's making sure that you have the right infrastructure to make sure that all of these talented players, they're not going to Bama, they're not going to Georgia, they're going to these HBCUs to restore what we once had. I think that's crucial. It may not be a change that happens today, tomorrow. Like Daniel was saying, a lot of people don't necessarily go there right away to look for talent for the draft or that they're drafted. But it's a start and it's a step in the right direction so that 4 years from now, 5 years from now, you're hearing 4 or 5 guys from HBCUs drafted. Then it turns to 10, then it turns to 20. It has to start somewhere.
That's good. That's really good. And just in terms of like, even, I know we're just talking about like the NFL. I mean, being held out of the NFL. We talked about Hugh, right? He was higher. Let's go back to that. First question, what do you feel like are keys for this to be successful? Because he has been in positions before where he has not had the correct opportunity or tools, like we've said. What will ensure, in your opinion, that this hire will be beneficial for all parties involved, whether that's the players, whether that's the school, whether that's getting Grambling State back to what it used to be? Like, what do you guys think are the vital things that need to happen?
Rodney, you want to go?
Yeah. I would just say, like, first and foremost, the most important aspect of your job as a head coach, whatever level it may be, whatever sport it may be, is to make the individuals that are on your team better. So you want for them to come in they want them to leave better off than when they came in. So the objective should always be, how do I make these boys turn into young men? Like,
Right.
How do I make sure I am a good example of that? So setting the example every day. There's a number of things you can do in terms of character, things of that nature. But the second most important thing is that graduation rate. I say it to you all the time.
Come on, Pops, come through.
You know what I'm saying? Got that father quote on right now. But I say it to you a lot, and I say it to my family, and I say it to the players we speak to. One thing that you cannot take away from us is our education. There's a lot of things as minorities that we're denied opportunities for, or we're spoken down to, or whatever it may be. But we got that piece of paper in our hands. Like, for me, that is a game changer. You can't call somebody stupid if they got that piece of paper in their hands. They got a degree, or they got their master's, or they keep going and keep going and keep going. That's something you can't take from them. So I think that should be very, very important in terms of success. And then obviously when it comes to ball, you want for them to just be as successful as possible. The goal is to win at the end of the day, not to lose. But winning doesn't always necessarily mean championships. It has to start somewhere, and then you take it to that next step, and it ultimately will turn into championships. But for Hugh, he has to take small steps. And the things that he can control is making sure that these men leave better than when they started.
Okay, Pops. Papa Chance.
Yeah, that's tough to follow up.
I'm gonna tell Jax.
I would say two important things for Hugh going into his first season at Grambling. He's got to emphasize 2 points, because there's so many players and people that are willing to go to HBCUs, but it has to be, can we be successful at the HBCU? Can we win? Can I be seen? The answer to all those questions is yes, but Hue Jackson needs to hammer that across the table. So right now, between now and February, when you get to signing day, Hue Jackson needs to be going into these families' homes and telling them 2 things. One, I was a successful NFL coach. Maybe not with the Browns, but in his one interim season with the Raiders, he went 8-8. That is impressive. When he was an offensive coordinator with the Bengals, they had one of the best offenses in the NFL. Andy Dalton, AJ Green, Giovanni Bernard, Jeremy Hill. They were balling. That's why he got the opportunity with the Browns. And unfortunately, he inherited one of the worst rosters of all time in Cleveland. So it didn't work out there. That's not on him. But he needs to go into these families' homes, these players' homes, and say, listen, I have been where you want to go. I have coached players, and I have coached NFL players. I know what it takes. I can get you there. Another thing, so that's for the kid. For the parents, it's, I don't need to be doing this. I'm a millionaire. I've been coaching football for 2 decades. I've been in the NFL for a decade. I have money. I'm solid. I'm doing this because I care about bringing this program back to prominence. I care about having these kids being successful. So for Hue Jackson to go into those families' houses and say, I truly care about your son, and it's not fake because he doesn't need it.
That's good.
It's not like Lincoln Riley's still going on recruiting visits at Oklahoma when he's about to bounce for USC. That's not what it is. It's, I truly care about your son. I'm committed to this program. We're gonna win. So put those two things together. I think Hue Jackson can have a very good first season and however long he's at Grambling State. I think those are two keys to success for him.
That's good, Daniel. And something like even just coming back to this book, like reading $40 Million Slaves, one of the things that another big takeaway I took was from, we talk a lot about like, okay, when athletes make it, they make it, right? And it's sometimes we see a lack of like, I don't feel like going back home, or I'm not that person anymore, and kind of feeling like they don't have a connection to where they used to be. And so I totally agree with you in terms of like the trust, but also when you have an individual who's been in those scenarios where they understand how shady the business is at a whole different level, like I think they can allow players to see from a different perspective. But most importantly, like you're literally helping them, like in terms of trusting that, okay, I know where home is. A lot of the times when people go from, if I'm going from Illinois and I'm going to UCF, or I'm going here, or I'm going to one of these top schools, typically I'm nowhere close to home. A lot of these guys can't even remember the last time that they spent Thanksgiving with their family. And so when you have that disconnect from like, okay, home, okay, giving back, okay, seeing my community, you become so far detached from it that you don't even understand the importance of giving back. So I think that's like one of my big things. Like, I think all of those things you guys mentioned were important, but just this trend of them going, and I don't want it to be a trend. Like, I want this to be something that's permanent. Like, trends are fleeting, but I do want this to be like a redemption of HBCUs. But I think really just kind of having that connection within where they're from, like even watching Deion Sanders. If you guys haven't watched his Barstool documentary, for everybody listening, go watch it. Like there are scenes where it's like he's with players and like there's no water, or they're in Mississippi and they in a hotel and like, or he knows like something's going on with an individual's family and it's like, let me go down to check. And when you give them an opportunity to go see that, like, I don't know, it just makes things tangible. Like it makes things so much tangible. And we had this news with Hugh. It's like, okay, another one. We got Eddie, we got Deion. Now we have Hugh. It's like this upward trend. But then we were in South Carolina and something like popped off even more. Daniel's texting me like, bro, the number one prospect I think is going to JSU. Oh my God. I'm like, Daniel, I don't even know who you're talking about. But like, that's amazing. Like, getting ready for the podcast. And so then a couple hours later, it's official. Travis Hunter goes to Jackson State University. And if you see his commitment video, you know, there were a lot of top schools. He committed from one to go to HBCU. Daniel, since you broke the news to me, like, what were your thoughts? Like, what's your take on this?
Earth-shattering. Earth-shattering is literally the only phrase I can properly encompass this decision.
Mm-hmm.
He has been, let me put this in perspective. He has been, Florida State, which he was originally committed to, has been his dream school for as long as he can remember. Probably because he was watching Deion ball out at Florida State. Deion Sander was at Florida State, balled out. It was his dream school his whole life. People have been trying, and Travis Hunter Jr., he's a corner, he's a wide receiver. He plays both ways. But to be the top-ranked recruit at those positions is unheard of. Usually it's a quarterback. Usually it's an offensive or defensive lineman. But it speaks to the level of talent that Travis Hunter Jr. has. And he's been solid in his Florida State commitment because, let me tell you the story. Kirby Smart, the head coach of Georgia football, annually has a top 1 or 2 class. Georgia and Alabama flip every year. Who has the best class? All the resources in the world at Georgia. Kirby Smart gets on a helicopter, lands at Travis Hunter Jr.'s high school.
Bro, how you even know?
Watches Travis Hunter Jr. play football, meets with him, fresh off the helicopter, that's just chilling in the background. And he's trying to get Travis to flip his commitment from Florida State to Georgia. Annual powerhouse, SEC school, all the money, all the resources, whatever you could ask for at Georgia, Travis Hunter would have it. And the head coach himself is coming off a helicopter to come get him. And that doesn't do anything. That's how solid Travis Hunter was in his commitment to Florida State. But Deion Sanders gets on the phone to Jackson State. He's pitching Jackson State. And within 48, we don't know how long they were talking, but it was under wraps until signing day. 24, 48 hours later, Travis Hunter is signing with Jackson State on early signing day. And it's never in the history of college football has the top ranked recruit signed at Travis Hunter is the highest ranked recruit ever to sign at an FCS school. This is literally, in every way that you can break it down, historic. It blew me away. And everybody in the college football landscape or sports in general was just blown away. And Travis Hunter continues to deflect the spotlight to HBCUs. Even today, I don't know if you saw, he posted like, the hype around my commitment has been me, but we should be putting the spotlight back on these HBCUs. And so I think he's really pushing that it's bigger than me. I'm starting something and I hope people follow me.
Which is good.
It's so commendable.
Good. It's so commendable because for me, like, people aren't willing to take that risk. Like, we even have, and something that frustrates me too, like even watching like other podcasts, like Channing Crowder, right? We know him for, his record within the league. Deion was on the podcast talking about the impact of JSU. And Channing's like, but the facilities, Deion, like, y'all ain't got that at a HBCU. But no, but this, but the stipend, but this. And then when you have these people who have made it, who are literally like, but no, at HBCU, like even a person who he respects and who's commendable, he still sat in Deion's face like, yeah, I don't think I'm sending my kids to HBCU still. That kind of, for me, it's like, what? That's like LeBron going to coach a HBCU and you still like, yeah, even though you the best, I can't send him there because I don't care how much money you are. I don't care if you're prime time or whatever. I'm still going to go where people have been historically. And so I think that's so mind-boggling for me because it shows like how embedded within history this is. But the saddening part about it is it hasn't been over 100 years ago when we were on top. So to see as much progress as they have made, like flip, HBCUs, Grambling State, nope, Notre Dame, nope, go here, nope, go here. Like, how is that possible? And so like we have to start, this is an encouragement to get out of the mindset of like change. Like there's a saying, the old South dies hard. And when it comes to athletes going to HBCUs, like it's hard. Like they won't go. And so I think he's definitely set up like this standard too of just like, that's commendable. Even you have Mikey Williams, basketball side. He's looking into HBCUs. Like you have people who are more willing. So I definitely think it's a trend. But Rodney, what are your thoughts on Travis moving towards JSU?
Yeah, like even what was the Bulls' name? Maker that went to Hampton.
McCord Maker, yeah.
McCord Maker, yeah. So he is trying to, and he was recruiting Mikey, like, yo, we got to make this move. Like, trying to change things. I would say, I'm gonna get back to Travis in a second, but I listened to your podcast. So if y'all, like Daniel plugged earlier, if y'all have not, obviously y'all are gonna be listening to this, but if you have not done so, y'all need to listen to those first few episodes of this season, like some heat. I listened to it in the gym.
Thank you.
Like I'm yeah, no doubt. I'm big on it. You little sis, of course, but I'm big on listening to things while I'm in the gym that are like fueling my mind, like educating me. And pretty much one thing I wanted to talk to you about was this subject. I think a lot of the reasons behind the Black athletes leaving the HBCUs to start pursuing the Alabamas and things of that nature back in the day is similar to what I say, is you're basically being told that you're not good enough. So your opportunity to play on a predominantly white team and show them that I'm better than you. That's the opportunity. Like, listen, I'm better than you in the classroom. I'm better than you on the field, and I'm going to succeed regardless. I think that's a lot of the reason why. And obviously I wasn't, back in the day, but I could see from my standpoint, if I was given the opportunity to go play at these prestigious schools and I'm going to be the only Black person. I come from a suburban town. There was 3 Black kids in my grade growing up until I was in high school. So I had that same type of mentality. I played in the hood, obviously, with my family and things of that nature, but I stayed out in the suburbs to prove a point. Like, we're here, top of my class, education-wise. We can do this academically. we're capable. And that's something that my family taught, like, we're capable, just as capable. So I think that played a huge part into why that shift. But I also believe that they kind of got away from that because, like Daniel mentioned, the facilities, money, flying helicopters, all the glitz and glamour, it kind of enamors people and takes away from the reason why you're really there. Travis going there, it's huge. Like, that's for the culture. Like, it's going to change things, hopefully, God willing. For me, Deion primetime, like, that's the greatest to ever do it at corner. DB specialist, that is the greatest to ever do it. There's a no-brainer. I'm going there to soak up the knowledge first and foremost. Like, how do I become a Hall of Famer? You can go to his office and find that out as a freshman, and he's gonna walk you through it until you're a junior, senior, eligible, ready to go to the draft. So, yeah, that's a game changer.
It's no-brainer, huh?
No-brainer.
Piggybacking off what Rodney said something, and it sparked something. It reminded me of something. Rodney said, there was something on the lines of, like, you still went back, you still played in the hood, you still, like, had a separate life from your suburban life. It reminded me of Inky Johnson. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Inky Johnson, motivational speaker. My
Tennessee,
very favorite motivational speaker. He's a stud. He grew up in Georgia. I believe he grew up in Georgia. And so his parents gave him the opportunity. They said, there's a private school, like a couple hours away. They said, you go to this school, you're guaranteed a scholarship to this big name college. You'll play football, you'll be good. And Inky Johnson said, no, I don't want to leave. I want to stay at this school with the lowest graduation rate in the state. I want to stay at this school and play ball. And so his parents were like, why? His friends and family were like, why did you do this? And eventually, I think he goes to the school for 1 year, and he drops out and he goes back to the school where it's like low graduation rate, low success rate. Nobody really gets college scholarships. He said when he was living it's like a 1-bedroom home, 14 people. He said, I wasn't the only one living there. My 2 younger cousins were living there with me. So if I can show them that I can make it out of here, and he ends up getting a scholarship to Tennessee, says, if I can show them that I can make it out of here from these circumstances, then that's what I want to do. And I think he was way, way ahead of his time. That was back in like the early 2000s. So now hopefully we're seeing more guys are saying, if I can go to a HBCU and be successful, why cannot more people do so? And
that's so it's good.
Like, they're trailblazers. I don't want to say trendsetter because, like you said, trends come and go. They're trailblazers. They're bringing talent to HBCUs. They're showing you it is possible. It can be done. And it's easier to do something when you've seen someone has done it. Because if you have to do it on your own and you have no example, that's tough. There's no else to put it. It's tough.
Yeah.
If you've seen someone else do it, it's more tangible for you. And
okay.
So I think
that's good. Let me play devil's advocate. Okay, we talk about seeing people, right? And the goal is for these athletes to go to these HBCUs, and if with the correct talent, with the correct, God willing, they get to the next level, right? The NFL. That's what we view as like, you've made it. Like, that's the top. Nobody wants to go to the CFL. Nobody wants to go anywhere, but you want to go to the NFL, right? Okay. Same thing goes for coaches. Being held out of the NFL. A lot of African-American coaches are held out of the NFL. Now, typically with athletes, there's a prideful thing. They're like, I'm not going to play in the CFL because I feel like I'm NFL worthy. Do you guys feel like there is going to be maybe a prideful issue or a more willingness for coaches to surrender, even though they have NFL talent and capabilities of coaching, but being put out of that industry so that they are more comfortable to go to a college and use their resources there? Because this took Hugh forever to do. I'm sure he's had these opportunities, but he's just now succumbing to it. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think the number one thing for
wait, I see the faces. Great questions.
I think the number one thing for NFL guys, and it recently came up because Mike Tomlin was circulated in rumors to head to USC. Mm-hmm. He said, he put it very, very blunt, and it's true. Why would I, one of the most successful coaches in the NFL over the last decade and a half, go recruit 15, 16, 17-year-olds. And I think that's the biggest issue that professional coaches have with going back to college. They've been dealing with men their whole life, their whole career. Now it's, I got to go convince a 16-year-old that I'm good enough for them, that my program is good enough for them, on top of being a coach. There's two, because you got 80 players on scholarship already, and every year you have to go out and recruit. It's 2 jobs. It's you could easily make the case, yes, the stakes are not as high, but being a college head coach, significantly more difficult, because your job is twofold. Whereas in the NFL, if you're a coach, you're a coach. You're not doing front office stuff. You're not recruiting people. You're coaching ball. So I think for these guys to go from the NFL to the college rankings, it's got to be something they're passionate about. It's got to be, oh, this was a dream school for me, or, oh, I want to bring prominence back to HBCUs. And that is a message that has to be pushed on them, because again, they don't want to, unless they feel it's their calling. And so it's something that has to grow more. So like seeing Deion succeed, like, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe it's not so, but maybe Deion's talking to other coaches like, hey, like, this isn't so bad. Like, you're shifting the culture, you're getting to impact young men's lives. And it's much, much easier. Rodney said, you help a boy grow into a man from ages 18 to 22. I can agree more. I'm 20 years old. I'm going through that process right now. And so if a coach desires to impact a young man's life, it's much easier to do so in college than it is in the NFL, where everybody's a man per se. Of course, there's different definitions of a man. It's more about how you act, but they're sort of past that transformative age. So I think if you can sell to them, you can impact young people's lives and you can bring prominence back to these schools. That is the selling point. But yes, it is difficult for these professional coaches to drop their pride, go back to college, recruit kids. It's difficult. Like, there's no question.
Rodney, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel summed it all up. I would add to that as a athlete, or former athlete, as you would say, a lot of these coaches, Eddie George, Deion Sanders, as an athlete, you always have like a competitive nature about yourself and you embrace challenges. So I feel as though for them, they seem that they're up against something that is a huge challenge for them.
Right.
And it kind of motivates them to overcome that obstacle. And I feel as though humbling yourself is huge, but also, like I say all the time, becoming an agent, you have a duty to serve others. And as a good Samaritan, as a human being, you have a duty to serve others. Like, whether it's uplifting somebody, it's leading the way. I think this is just an example of doing that, kind of paving the road for somebody else, paying it forward. And I think that when you leave this earth, and I say it to my son now, he's 1 year old, he doesn't understand it, but I tell him, like, Daddy loves you, and everything that I'm doing today until the day I'm gone is for you, and you're building a legacy, and you kind of want to leave a legacy. So I think a lot of these coaches that are going back to the college realm or to these HBCUs, when it's all said and done, they want to be known for, hey, I left a legacy, as I left this program in good standing, and now it's going back to what it used to be. And it's not something that's discussed for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. It's for life. So with Deion, like, when Jackson is 30, 40, 50 years old, he's going to read about Deion Sanders, like the person at HBCU that brought it back. And it's going to be Deion Sanders, So I think legacy plays a huge part in this.
I think that's good. And even just to speak on what you're saying further with legacy, Rodney, what's really important is, like, even athletes now, we talk about Fred Taylor, like so many individuals who feel like they should be a Hall of Famer and they don't get the credit and they don't get their flowers from these big organizations that they feel like they deserve it from. And I think also in terms of like legacy and credibility, you're 10 times more likely as an African-American coach, African-American player, get that jersey hung, to get those things on a wall, to leave historical things, to have things named after you, like to get your flowers where you're from, rather than trying to fight for it within organizations that were never put here for us. And so I think sometimes like people have to take that into consideration too. Like Deion was somebody before, Hugh was somebody before. Travis is also a huge individual before committing to Jackson State. But like the small little individuals on the team now, Deion's kids, like deciding to go to the school with their dad, that's history. And so you're 10 times more likely to be that guy. And it's not about being that guy, but it's just about getting acknowledged for what work you have put in. Nobody's going to do that better than your people, in my opinion.
I agree. I think that's why I say it's about culture. It's about culture, like building one another up. Like a lot of times I talk about, I know I'm giving a lot of personal stories.
Oh, you good, bro. You good.
Oftentimes it's, to me, we don't hear enough about how the Black community uplift one another. You hear about other ethnicities and things of that nature, how one person brings that person on and they educate them, and now it's 3 people that are doing this, and now it turns to 300 and things of that nature. I feel as though for us, we really need to tap into, it's okay if one person succeeding and you're not yet, but to learn from them. Like everybody has a different path, and I think as you mature, you realize that like you don't need to always have it right now. You can learn from somebody. So that's why it's so huge for a person like Deion Sanders to be a head coach at HBCU, because now it's bringing in these young men who really, a lot of them don't have any direction. They don't really have any support. They don't know what direction to go in, like I said, and he is showing them the path of success. And from there, if it's 90 people on a roster, those 90 people can change their households. They can change generations. It's really just supporting one another and then paving the way for other generations. We need to do a better job. Like as Black community, we need to do a better job. I think a lot of times we think that the only way that you can give back or that you can be of service is if you're rich or if you're wealthy. That's not true. You know what I mean? Like you can literally say, hey, I think your hair looks amazing. Or, hey, and that changes somebody's, like, that's giving back to somebody. That's basically saying, like, I'm uplifting you. You may have been having a bad day. Or you can pay for somebody's breakfast sandwich, $2. Like, that's giving back. You don't need to be rich to basically give back or to serve others. I think that's a problem that we have. Like, all these people have money and they're the only ones that can do it. No, us 3, we can do it. We can give back. We can change the narrative. We can uplift one another. We can create generational wealth. It just starts with a strategic plan.
That's good. That's really good. Okay. We're going to end this podcast up a little bit, but I got like 2 very important questions. First, Daniel, before we hopped on this podcast, you was like, Anaya, I got these people, like I got these facts. So I'm going to open up and allow you to just go into this question. So the question to preface is, who are the top prospects? Who's another David Moore from a HBCU that we need to be looking for? Give me one person. And if you don't know, that's okay, right? But that gives us an opportunity to learn, like, okay, we got to go start looking at these schools. But before we say that question, give me the examples that you want to talk about of individuals who have been successful from HBCUs.
I was shocked when I looked up and I took down like the names that I thought people would really know, but I was looking at the list. I was like, I know all these guys. All these guys are great. Former All-Pros, former Pro Bowlers, some of the best players of their position in NFL history, but I'm gonna stop rambling. I'm gonna give it to you straight. So Teron Armstead, left tackle for the Saints right now. He's gonna be a free agent, could arguably be the highest paid offensive tackle in league history. $23.5 million a year is the threshold. I think he could surpass that. He's one of the best. Tariq Cohen from North Carolina A&T, excellent punt returner, running back for the Bears. He's been out this year with, I believe, a torn Achilles, but he's electric when he's on the field. Javon Hargrave plays for the Eagles, in line for a $20+ million a year extension this offseason. Titus Howard, first round pick from Alabama State. I'm a Texans fan. He was drafted by the Texans. I did not know who this man was when he was drafted, partially because he was from HBCU and there wasn't as much coverage, but he's been a great player. I believe he's the last first round pick to come from an HBCU, I believe it was 2019. Darius Leonard, highest paid inside linebacker in the NFL. They call him the Maniac. The guy's insane. He's incredible. And then we talk about historically, Ed Too Tall Jones, Shannon Sharp, Walter Payton, greatest receiver of all time, Jerry Rice, one of the best edge rushers of all time, Michael Strahan. So the talent is there. It has been there in the past. It's been there. It's there now. We're talking about some of the highest paid guys in the NFL at their position. Look at Teron Armstead, possibly the highest paid guy at his position. Javon Hargrave, one of the highest paid guys at his position. Darius Leonard, highest paid guy at his position. If you consider Tariq Cohen like a special teamer, one of the top guys at his position. And so it's like the talent is there. And I didn't know that until I looked into it. And so those are some of the guys that I was like, wow, this is big.
Okay. Now give me your one person who we need to be looking at from HBCU.
One person. I got 3 to 5, but the top HBCU.
I mean, hey, we can expose them all. Come on, just give me.
Okay. So there's probably 3 to 5 HBCU guys this year that have a good chance of getting drafted. The top guy, I would say, Marquise Bell from FAMU. He got invited to the Shrine Game. He's like a round 3, round 4 guy. Really good, strong safety. Plays extremely well. Plays physical. He's a height, weight, speed guy. He'll run 4.4. He'll go to the combine. He'll pass the eye test. Everything that you can. He was originally committed to Maryland, I believe, and for whatever reason didn't work out there. So he went to JUCO. Then he went to FAMU, and now he's probably the top guy. Other guys, Akil Glass, quarterback from Alabama A&M. Joshua Williams got a Senior Bowl invite from Fayetteville State, I believe. I'm missing a big one. Man.
Rodney, I was trying to say, Rodney, you got the big one?
I said Joshua Williams just now. And Jacoby Durant from SC State as well. So there's a couple guys for sure. But I would say the top guy is Marquise Bell right now.
Who's your top, Rodney?
Marquise Bell. I'm a DB. So, of course, I'm going to show him some love.
Okay, vet. And then next question. Next head coach, let's say next week, we get another opportunity to have amazing news for the Black community that another African-American who's prominent within this community decided to become a head coach at HBCU. Which coach would you like that to be and why?
Just looking at the list right now and looking at what they've done with their careers and what they're currently doing, I think it makes a lot of sense for Jerry Rice to be that guy. Imagine, as great as it is for Deion Sanders to call you and say, come to my program, one of the best defensive backs of all time, Jerry Rice, in the eyes of probably 9 out of 10 people, greatest receiver in NFL history. And he's not doing much right now. I don't think he's doing it. He's not on TV. He's not coaching anywhere. I think he's just chilling. So for the best receiver of all time to call you and say, come play at my school, I'm not saying no to Jerry Rice.
Okay. So we got Jerry Rice, and then Rodney, who you got?
Uncle Shay Shay.
Really?
Yeah. Shannon Sharp. I'm gonna be honest with you. I used to be big on, and no disrespect, he's a former HBCU alum, Stephen A. Smith, very educated, intelligent brother. I used to listen to First Take all the time, but I flipped the channel over to Fox and started listening to Shannon Sharp. And this was the past few years.
It's different.
And it's just different. Stephen A. Smith has a lot of energy, but Shannon Sharp, it's different when a guy played the game and he's talking about it. He's a Hall of Famer. So It's a lot of people who for me, for example, I talk about sports. I'm not a Hall of Famer. I don't have any credibility. I just happen to play college ball. For him, the way he talks, the passion, the love he has for the game, I feel as though he'll galvanize so many people to come to his school just to be around Uncle, yo, Unc, you know what I mean? He's just, I think if he had the opportunity, even if it was just as a consultant or advisory role or to coach the tight ends with Deion Sanders, something like that. I don't know if he has the necessary pedigree to be a head coach as of yet, but he has shown that if you give him an opportunity, he's going to make the most of the opportunity. He may not be the greatest at it yet, but he's going to work his butt off to make sure that he's successful. I would love to see him.
I like that. I like that those were two different people too. And y'all had two different reasons why. I really, really like that. Okay, last question. You guys are both into this realm of scouting, right? Both of you guys have aspirations to be agents. And so really to get there, y'all gonna be watching a lot more film. For individuals who are in your position, who may be scouting, who may be agents, who maybe just want to, just do scouting. Obviously, previously, before you guys have had some ignorance about HBCUs and the talent that was coming out of it simply because of the exposure that it's been given. What would be your encouragement to somebody who is not looking at HBCUs, who's a scout, who loves football just as much as you guys? What will you tell them right now? What would your message be?
I'd say the proof is in the pudding. I realistically believe 3 to 5 guys will be drafted out of HBCUs this year. And if that doesn't catch your attention, then you shouldn't be in the business. That just proves talent is there.
Daniel.
I know. You just, if the results are there and they're going to be, then you should be looking there. Period. That's it. I mean, nothing speaks to the future like the past. What has happened before will happen again. If 3 to 5 guys are drafted this year, could be 6 to 7 next year. You want to be the guy, and you want to be the guy that discovers them. You want to be the first guy to turn on, or first guy or girl to turn on HBCU tape and say, this guy's a baller. Let me put everybody else on him. It's big in the scouting community to say, this is my guy. I found him. Like, I know when me and Rodney scout, it's like a pride thing. Like, this is my guy. He's playing well. And so it's like, and you'll bring it up on a weekly basis. Like, hey, look at so-and-so. He's balling again.
My guy.
I put y'all on. And so to be the first one to identify talent at that level is it offers you more credibility, and it shows that you know what you're talking about. So people just need to be watching. That's it.
What you got, Rodney?
I echo that. Just don't think that you're too good for any player or any level of play. Don't think you're too good, because like Daniel said, if you're the one that identified a Jerry Rice or Shannon Sharp or Steve McNair, like, man, you're good. Like, you're good for life. People are gonna think that you're credible. They're gonna always roll with you. They're gonna think that you have the eye for talent. I think that's huge. So don't think that you're too good for something. Give everybody an opportunity. And really, if you're a good identifier of talent, like, you'll see them. Like, you'll see where it's at. It'll pop out on the tape. You'll be good. But just for sure, don't ever think you're too good for anything.
I love it, y'all. Thank you guys for sharing this platform with me. Thank you, Daniel. I know you're excited. I was excited to have you on, bro, because I knew you were just gonna be dropping every fact from anywhere, bro. So I'm just super grateful to have you guys on. Super excited just to have this conversation. But for those who are listening, I hope that this episode has been informative for you. I keep saying this, the mission that I want to take my podcast in the direction of is education, and I really want to educate the people who look like us. And so I hope this has allowed you to maybe say, hey, I'm going to go watch those HBCU schools, or maybe let me figure out more about Travis Hunter, or maybe let me even go attend an HBCU game because I've never been to one. And small things like that. And I think we'll continue to make the change. So thank you guys for helping me to be a part of it.
Yes.
No doubt.
It was a pleasure to be on. I'm grateful.
Yes.
I would say, hold up. I would say everybody tap into Anaya and tap into Daniel. 2 superstars. Daniel is going to be a superstar agent.
Facts.
Anaya is going to be a superstar at whatever she puts her, whatever she wants to do. Like, this girl is going to kill it. Like, really tap into these 2. I'm telling you, they're going to be, like they said, trailblazers. They're going to change the game.
Thank you, bro. And don't let Rodney be too humble, because he be over here discovering all the Jerry Rices and future Deion Sanders too. So
that's facts. Rodney doesn't sleep. Rodney doesn't sleep.
Rodney don't sleep at all, bro. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate you, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.